There's a lot to think about when considering an au pair. Before you get into personality fit, schedules, and daily logistics, there are two basic requirements you need to meet. First, you must have a legal, private bedroom. An au pair is required to have their own room. If it's below grade, it must meet proper egress and safety standards. This isn't flexible, it's part of the program rules. Second, you need a realistic plan to cover the agency fee. Agency fees are typically around $8,000 to $10,000 upfront, depending on the agency. Most families don't just have that kind of cash sitting around, and that's normal. Many agencies offer payment plans, but whether you pay in full or use a payment option, you need to be financially prepared for that initial cost. This upfront fee is often what makes people assume au pairs are only for wealthy families. But what's important to understand is that the agency fee is just one piece of the overall yearly cost. When you look at the full annual expense, especially for families with multiple children, the program can actually make more financial sense than a daycare, full-time nanny, or piecing together babysitters. To give a real example, I'll share what it looked like for our family. For several years, we used a local daycare for our twins when they were around 3 to 4 years old. The cost was about $620 per week for both kids full-time. However, if the kids were sick, they couldn't attend. That meant either keeping them home or getting a call during the day to pick them up. They also started daycare during the tail end of pandemic rules, which meant closures and quarantine periods that sometimes kept them home for extended stretches. Over the course of the year, daycare was costing us about $32,000, and that only covered our twins. It also meant we were constantly using sick days and scrambling for backup daycare. Then we started looking into the au pair program. The required program costs are fairly straightforward. Agency fee around $10,000, the weekly stipend is about $215 per week, and the education stipend, which is $500 per year. There are optional costs many families choose to cover as well, like a cell phone, driving expenses like permit tests and driving lessons, car access, insurance, and gas, and sometimes bringing the au pair along on family vacations. Those additional costs vary a lot depending on your family setup. But even with factoring in the required program costs over the year, our total came out to about $32,000, essentially the same as what we had been paying for daycare. The difference was that the daycare covered 2 children, while the au pair program covered all 4 of our kids. It also gave us significantly more flexibility, coverage when the kids were sick, and consistent childcare in our home. The program runs for 12 months, and at the end of the year, you can choose to extend with your au pair for 6, 9, or 12 additional months. We're currently in the early stages of our second year and already strongly considering doing the program again. Compared to daycare, au pairs often provide significantly more flexibility. This can be especially helpful for families with multiple kids or non-traditional work schedules. In many situations, they're also less expensive than a full-time nanny or piecing together babysitters. And beyond logistics and cost, one of the most meaningful aspects of having an au pair is the cultural exchange. They bring their language, traditions, holidays, and food into your home. For many families, au pairs don't just become caregivers, they become extended family and lifelong friends. Childcare isn't one size fits all, but for the right family, the au pair program can be an incredibly practical and rewarding option. Please like and subscribe to follow along for more.